Yeah, man, it's a good story. It's funny because I started flying like you. I was very young. I started flying at 13.
Yep.
And my
13 years old. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. It's absolutely crazy. And so the kind of this long story short is basically my dad was an electrical engineer. He worked for American Airlines. I grew up in Dallas. And I was born in Dallas, grew up in Florida. But basically at that time, I had the flight benefits through my parents, through my dad who was working. And so I was flying around. And at the age of 13, I was finally of age where I had enough sense to appreciate what was going on when I got on an airplane. I went to a cousin's wedding. It was on a CRJ-200 operated by Comair at the time, and I fell in love with it. And so we came back, landed in Florida, and I was living at Cocoa Beach at the time, and I'm like, you know what, I think this is what I want to do as a career. I've been exposed from my dad, but also been exposed now at 13 with what it was like to fly on this RJ-200. And immediately got back, I went to Target, I bought Microsoft Flight Sim for 49 bucks, took it home that night, cranked it up, didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I'm like, maybe I should return this thing, because I don't know, like top to bottom, left to right, sky from ground, I don't know what I'm doing here, but my dad was like, you know what, just stay with it, and he kind of inspired me a little bit. He's like, just keep with it. We'll get you a little computer yoke, you know, so he did that. Well, before I knew it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to the local airport in Cocoa Beach. It was actually Merritt Island, KCOI. I went over there, got a discovery flight at a place called Voyager.
Yeah, and how old do you have to be to start training too? Because I forget all these. I mean,
Yeah.
is it like 15 or 16?
Yeah.
Because what's the minimum age to fly? Is it 16 years old?
16 solo. Yeah.
16 solo, and then 16 to do the private pilot, right?
That's right. Yeah. So exactly. So you can really start at any age. I started at 13. You can start at 12. You can start at any age. And so, however, you're going to have to fly with an instructor until you get to 16. At 16, you're going to get a student pilot certificate. You can fly basically by yourself, with an instructor or by yourself. Can't take friends, family, colleagues, none of that. It's either you're on your own or you're flying with an instructor. So I did that at 16. 17 private pilot license. Basically, that's a license that requires at least 40 hours of training.
They're under Part 61, it's
under
40.
Part 61,
141, it's 35,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy too because, you know, I was 17 years old,
Yep.
but they let me solo really quick, like after,
Yeah.
I think it was was it like 7 hours or 6?
They can sign you up in as early as 5. If you're good, you're good.
Yeah,
you know?
so in 5 hours, in Christian, this is crazy. Like so this guy who's my instructor, he was a CPA during the day, and he was the flight instructor at night.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Wow.
and I laughed. But I didn't know the difference, right? And so the CPA was teaching me how to fly, and I knew there was always something off a little bit. Now, I'm not saying he was a bad pilot. He just wasn't as intense, and he was a little bit heavier set. And so when we hopped in the 150 or the 175, like I was just scrunched in there. I could barely fit in, close the damn door, right? Yeah. But at like 5 or 6 hours, he's like, Ryan, it's now time to solo. And I was like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to solo this airplane by myself. Like, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was shaking when I pulled up to the Holt Short Lines.
Yeah.
And because I'm in Falcon Field, I'm in Mesa, Arizona. I'm 17 years old. I've got 6 hours of flying.
Yeah.
I pull up to the Holt Short Lines, and I'm like, dude, this is do or die.
Yeah.
Because in aviation, when I take off, I'm the only one in that airplane. He was no longer with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was shaking. And when you announce yourself on the ground control, you're like, ground Cessna 7941 Tango. This is the call sign. 7941 Tango.
Yeah.
Going for my first solo. You identify to the controller that this is your first solo, so he can help you out.
That's right.
And he's like, hey, you got this, man. And I remember he was such a cool dude. Like, he was so smooth and so cool. And when I pulled up, I was like, 7941 Tango. I was stuttering, dude. My feet were shaking. Like I was on the brake pedals, right? Because you steer on an airplane with your feet.
Yeah.
You only steer in the air with this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, 441 Tango, ready for takeoff. And I was like, okay, Ryan.
Most people don't know that. Most people do not know about the rudder pedal thing. Like, I'm on the ground steering with my feet. Like, they think you're driving like a car, all the time.
Yeah. And I'm like, no. You actually steer with the brakes and the rudder pedals and all that good stuff. Yep. And so he's like, you're clear for takeoff. I was like, holy shit. I was like, you're going to do this today, Ryan.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, I still remember this. Do you remember your first solo?
Oh, yeah. I remember. I can describe the whole thing. I mean, it was in Melbourne, Florida.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be, I was in high school at the time. I was supposed to show up to English class in the morning. Mr. Finney was my English teacher. I dropped out of your class that day, Mr. Finney, if you were wondering where I was at. And so I was in Melbourne, Florida, and basically my instructor at the time, we pull up to the Holt Short Lines, and he hops out and says, all right, man, you're on your own. Now, I had been flying since I was 13, and I couldn't solo because I didn't have the age. So for the last 3 years, it's like I did have a considerable amount of hours.
You were building up time.
So I was building up time.
Yeah.
And so
how many hours do you think you had? Probably 20, 30, 40, 50?
Yeah, at the time I soloed, I had probably just shy of 30, maybe like 27 hours, 28, Yeah, and so, but that's in the airplane. Of course, on Flight Sim, man, I had I don't even know, probably 1,000 hours of flight sim time, you know,
Yeah.
because I would get home from high school. When I was in high school,
Which is so important, by the way, though, too. I mean, you know, when you're
100%.
training,
Yep.
the cheat that we all have, like as pilots with family, because your dad flew for American, right?
That's right, yeah.
The cheat is like, hey, how do you get around other pilots? How do you
Yeah.
get around the instruments? How do you get around this stuff? Because the more you stare at it, the more you know, the more familiar, the more comfortable you are.
That's correct.
It's
Yeah.
crazy how
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah, it's muscle memory, man. It
It's
really
crazy
is.
though.
Yeah.
Like people don't understand. Like you're telling me
Yeah.
about flight sim. I'm like, dude, why in the hell would you have flight sim, right?
Yeah.
But the importance of flight sim is when you actually transition to a real airplane. You're like, no, I
Correct.
know what the navigation is. I know what the VOR is. I know what the flight instruments are. I know what the
Yeah.
because when you're staring at, I don't know about you. I started on a 6-pack.
That's right. Me too.
I didn't
Yeah.
have these fancy
Yeah.
Garmins at the time.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny because it's like people see like you're saying, Microsoft Flight Sim. It's a $49 game. What are you
Right.
doing with a desktop game? You know, it's like, no, don't discount the value of a $49 game. Like
Right.
that $49 game, what it did was actually save me money because I didn't need extra sessions later on.
Right.
Because I was spending time at home preparing
Yeah.
and getting more acclimated and getting more proficient on this 6-pack that you're describing.
yeah.
Right? And all that was done at home, you know.
Yeah, I hate when people are like, well, you can't really do it in 40 hours. Dude, if you can't do it in 40 hours, like if you took you 100 hours, it's still worth it.
It's still worth it.
If it took you 75 hours, it's still worth
Yep.
it. I mean, think about it. You go to work for 40 hours in 1 week.
Yeah.
Like guys are like really sharp kids, like sharp as a tack. I think I did mine in like 42.
Yeah.
43,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I mean,
You
but
know,
it doesn't
yeah.
matter. Like
Yeah.
go and get the damn license.
That's right.
Because now you're going on to phase 2.
Yeah. And the truth is too, like for those of them that are like, oh, you can't do it in 40 hours. A lot of it is how committed are you?
Yeah.
How committed are you to the craft? If you're
Yeah.
committed to the craft, you'll do it in 40 hours.
Yeah.
And not you'll do it in 40 hours in an airplane. I was able to do it in that time, but that's also because I spent 400 hours in a sim on a desktop sim.
And the more you do it, the issue that I found with a lot of pilots is the more you fly. Like if you could do it in a month, you're actually better. Like if Christian went to go do the pilot thing today,
Yeah.
or Drew, he
Yeah.
would actually do it. If he could do it in a month, he'd
Yeah.
be more successful.
Yeah.
I saw guys stringing it out where it was like 6 months and 8 months, 9 months. You would go and do steep turns and you would peg it
Yeah.
at 45 and your
Yeah.
horizon's right there and you'd be solid as an
Yeah.
ace.
Yeah.
And then you would wait 30 days to go and do your next round of steep turns and stalls and unusual
Yeah.
attitudes and all this stuff because
Yep.
those are the basic things that you need to know and have if you're going to become a pilot. And you
Yeah.
can't do that shit every 3 months.
Yeah. It's all reps, right? It's all reps.
It's all reps.
It's repetition.
It's
you know?
all reps.
Yeah. So imagine you're going to the gym, you're doing chest, you're doing like yesterday I was working out chest, right? And then
Yeah.
you got a little couple of guns here, you know. So then
No,
you
you're
don't-
puny, bro. You're puny, man. You're puny. What are you talking
Yeah,
about, man?
man.
What you talking
This
about,
is a
man?
protein shake
Is that
right
a
here.
small? Are you
Huh?
wearing a small?
This is way isolate, man.
I could see you're wearing a small. God damn, dude. What you
Yeah,
gotta show
man.
off, man? Why you gotta show off from me, man?
Like I knew it was coming to be on the camera, bro.
I was on boat this week and I thought I was looking pretty good about myself, you know. And then I see you and I'm like, you know, you're a pillar of health.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it. I don't know if we'll go that far, but you know, we try.
But let me finish this too because I wanted to hear
Yeah.
about your solo, right? Because
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting when people become pilots. They, you know, like November 7941 Tango. You know,
Yeah.
this has been like the number that I've stuck with a lot in my life because
Okay.
you are, you know, when you get this connection with airplanes.
Yeah.
And you start getting these wins, it's
Yep.
so important for folks to realize, you know, hey, you're going to read these books, you're going to do ground school, but then you got to get these wins, these little wins. And my biggest win was I was so afraid of solo and I was so afraid to do this. The best landings almost that I've ever had in my life, in my career, were the first 3 solo ones that I did.
Isn't that amazing?
They were greasers.
Yeah, I believe it.
took off. I was terrified. I came back around. Cook, cook.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the
Yeah.
sound, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
cook, cook. It
Yeah.
like lands because
Yeah.
you get that
Yeah.
fluidity. Like you
That's
like,
right.
is that even
Yeah.
a word? Fluidity? Is
It
that
is
even
now.
a word? Sounds damn good.
It
That's
is
like,
now.
that's like in the Webster and shit,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But it's the fluid motion of that airplane
Yeah.
coming down
Yeah.
where those rubbers meet because the rubbers are not moving.
Doesn't it feel so good when you touch down nice and easy? Like you just grease it right on. Like this morning actually at 1 a.m. I fly for Spirit on an Airbus. I landed this morning at 1 a.m. here in Fort Lauderdale. And okay, if the people were sleeping in the back, they didn't feel a damn thing.
Nice.
And
I
it's
love
like,
that.
So it's like when I decelerated and just bring it, to
Yeah.
a stop, taxi off the runway, I'm like, man, you got your money's worth on this
Right,
flight.
because it made up for the last one that you did when it came down. You knocked down the when you knocked down the oxygen mask, right?
That's because it was an auto land. I wasn't landing the thing.